Why does Europe have so many microstates? You know, I've thought about this quite a bit, especially since I started doing like geography quizzes and kind of just trying to learn the countries a little bit more. And I've noticed that some of them are very, very small, like so small, a single dot inside of another country, that I was always curious, like, how is this even possible? So this channel, Khanubis, cool name, has made a video explaining why Europe has so many microstates. The description says, ever looked at a map of Europe and wondered why some of the countries are so small? Well, that's what this video is here to answer. Okay, so he's not giving me anything. We gotta watch it. If it's your first time here, my name is Jacob. How's it going? And I am an American, obviously, that is just super fascinated with Europe and trying to learn and experience and hopefully travel to and see as much as I can of the entire continent. So without further ado, smash that like button and let's dive in.
Europe is home to a lot of small countries. Not just small relative to huge countries like the United States or Brazil or India or other countries people comment from, but like
Russia.
Really tiny countries. The smallest fully sovereign
Andorra,
country on Earth, in both area and population, is Vatican City. But it is hardly alone on this continent. So just how do so many of these tiny little microstates exist? And why are so many of them in Europe? So first, what is our general criteria for a microstate? Well, first off, perhaps we should differentiate microstates from micronations, which are tiny, unrecognized countries that someone or a small group of people might set up around their houses or farms or communes or unclaimed territories or disused helipads in the middle of the English Channel, either for fun or to protest something.
I'm pretty sure there's one of these in the we have one in the United States. Gosh, where is that? Okay, so it says that there are none in the U.S., like Monaco or San Marino. I could have swore I saw one. You know how it is when you see something on the internet. You never know what's true or not. So, all right, back to it.
No one recognizes them as actual countries. They obviously don't count here. And I'm also not going to count disputed countries because, frankly, I'd like to be able to post this video with my head still on my shoulders. No, we're here to talk about real, fully recognized countries that just so happen to have an area of less than, let's say, 3,000 square kilometers. Because I said so. Now, dozens of countries actually fit this profile, very few of which are actually in Europe, but most of these countries are islands, which I'm not going to count in this video because their size isn't exactly surprising. I mean, small islands, small country. In order to best explain why all these European microstates even exist as separate entities though, perhaps it would be best to look at each of them one by one to see not only how they got so small, but also how they survived on such a...
Where is this? I hope he shows me where this is. This looks crazy. Kind of like a monastery, like the way that the building is designed. Really beautiful though, and like some of the buildings going up in the very top.
A dynamic continent. High in the Pyrenees Mountains, nestled right between France and Spain, lies the Principality of Andorra. This little non-Schengen principality has a population of 76,000 and has no airports, no sea access, and the nearest railway station is in a French town literally called the Hospital near to Andorra. In a sense, really the entire reason for Andorra's existence in its rather unusual form has to do with the fact that most of Spain was once Islamic. In the centuries after the Battle of Tours in 732, in which French generals had successfully prevented Muslim forces from expanding into modern-day France, the Marca Hispanica, or Spanish Marches, were established as a kind of buffer zone between Muslim Spain and the rest of Christian Europe, with the newly created territory of Andorra under the protection of the Count of Urgell in modern-day Spain. These powers, however, eventually transferred to the Bishop of Urgell, with several grants then being passed on to the Count of Foix in modern-day France, effectively establishing him as the secular ruler of Andorra. To alleviate the power struggle between the bishop and the count, the Pariage of Andorra was enacted in 1278, establishing each of them as the two co-princes of Andorra. The Bishop of Urgell still holds his title, but when the County of Foix was incorporated into France, the title of Andorran co-prince was transferred to the King of France, and then after France's very interesting 19th century was transferred to the presidents of France, now leading to the Andorran government's rather interesting classification as a unitary parliamentary semi-elective diarchy, as they also have a prime minister, who's actually from Andorra. Also high up in the mountains, but this time in the Alps, Liechtenstein is as often forgotten as it is hard to find, as it is hard to pronounce if you don't know German. The Principality of Liechtenstein was first created.
Oh gosh, it's from a movie. Liechtenstein. Oh, what is that from? I've heard Liechtenstein before a couple of times, obviously, since starting this, but it's in like some famous movie. I can't remember. All right, let's go back.
As it is hard to pronounce if you don't know German. The Principality of Liechtenstein was first created in 1719, when Charles VI of the Holy Roman Empire, or the ungodly Germanic kingdoms if you prefer, declared that the communities of...
Did he just say the ungodly Germanic kingdoms? Was it before they had religion? I'm like, European history, don't come at me in the comments. I'm trying to learn it. There's so much of it, and it goes so deep.
Or the ungodly Germanic kingdoms, if you prefer, declared that the communities of Vaduz and Schellenberg were now unified into one territory, named after Anton Florian of the House of Liechtenstein. Back then, the idea of there being a principality of this small size in Central Europe was really nothing special, seeing as there were about 1,800 others just like it. But what really sets Liechtenstein apart is how it avoided being absorbed into its neighbors over the next 300 years. All was perfectly balanced until the end of the 18th century when the Napoleon nation attacked, with Napoleon dismantling the HRE and establishing the Confederation of the Rhine within its place, itself quickly replaced by the German Confederation. Liechtenstein became independent again in 1815, narrowly avoiding becoming part of Bavaria, and continuing to solidify its ties to its neighbors Austria and Switzerland. During the Austro-Prussian War of 1866, which was, interestingly enough, a war fought between Austria and Prussia in the year 1866, Liechtenstein manned an army of 80 soldiers to defend Austrian Tyrol from Italy, having sided with Austria in the war, but with Prince Johann II forbidding his soldiers from fighting other Germans. This, by the way, is where we get the popular legend of their army sending out 80 men and coming back with 81 because of their new Italian friend. From this point on, though, Liechtenstein would declare neutrality, though its economic ties to Austria-Hungary in World War I still led to it being sanctioned by the Allies. This led to them forming a customs and monetary union with their other neighbor, Switzerland, which would help it successfully remain neutral yet again in World War II, because Switzerland.
Yeah, I heard that in one of the last videos. Did I hear that in one of the last videos? Or is it something that I wanted to check out where like Switzerland has never been invaded? Kind of nuts. I didn't know that Liechtenstein was so close to it.
The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg is actually quite a lot bigger than the other countries in this video. Remain neutral yet again in World War II, because Switzerland. In terms of area, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg is actually quite a lot bigger than the other countries in this video, but obviously a list of mainland European microstates isn't exactly quite finished without it. And it is still quite a lot smaller than its neighbors France, Germany, or even Belgium. Luxembourg dates back to the year 963, originally established as a small town around a fort, which would become one of the many other small kingdoms and city-states within the Holy Roman Empire. That was all well and good, but then once again Napoleon happened and broke up the HRE, with Luxembourg being re-established as a Grand Duchy under the German Confederation, originally being a bit bigger but losing land to Belgium. I actually made a whole video about Luxembourg from Luxembourg about 2 years ago.
Dude, love it. He's sticking true to the theme of the channel. That's hilarious.
Learn more about it, which is good because now I can give more attention to the other countries here.
It definitely does scream, hey, look at us, we're not the Netherlands.
The Principality of Monaco, one of the world's 3 true city-states, and the most densely populated sovereign state in the world, at a staggering population of 35,000, Monaco has been ruled by the House of Grimaldi more or less since 1297, and no surprise is also the country with the highest GDP per capita in the world, at least according to the IMF and the UN. Monaco's name actually dates back to the 6th century BC, as according to an ancient myth, the god Hercules had passed through the area, turning away from the other gods, and thus a temple was erected near the modern nation.
I just gotta go back really quick. Monaco looks absolutely insane. Like, look at that. It doesn't even seem real to me. And imagine that this is where they do the Grand. It's been a day, you guys. I need more coffee. The Grand Prix, isn't that in Monaco? Like the race, the F1 race? I'm pretty sure it is.
Turning away from the other gods, and thus a temple was erected near the modern nation. Because this temple was the only one here, it inspired the name Monoikos, from monos meaning one and oikos meaning house. The Grimaldi family set up shop in 1297, with the area of Monaco under the sovereignty of the Republic of Genoa. This lasted all well and good until 1797, when who else but Napoleon came in to mess stuff up as usual.
Dude, Napoleon came and wrecked all of Europe, didn't he? I guess not wrecked. If you're French, you're like, hey, yeah, he was doing God's word, taking over the entire continent. No, I'm totally kidding. It's all jokes. Pretty nuts though. This is like the third one that we've gone through that Napoleon came through and wrecked
Until
everything.
1797, when who else but Napoleon came in to mess stuff up as usual, conquering Genoa and all its holdings. Monaco was released from French occupation in 1814, but then became a protectorate of Sardinia under the Congress of Vienna the very next year, remaining in this position until the Treaty of Turin in 1860, with Sardinia backing out of Monaco, the nearby regions of Nice and Savoy ceding to France, and Monaco becoming a French protectorate yet again. Monaco was occupied by Italy and then the German Wehrmacht during the Second World War, with said forces being defeated and pushed back in 1944, though sadly not before Germany could get their hands on their Jewish population. More recently,
Yikes.
Monaco became a full UN member in 1993, and a new treaty was signed with France in 2002, stating that, should there be no Grimaldi heirs to the Monegasque throne, Monaco would still remain an independent country.
Hold on. I gotta make a note. React to Monaco. All right, I want to hit Monaco. I'm super curious about the country. Country? Microstate?
One of the oldest sovereign states in the world, and indeed the oldest republic, the most serene Republic of San Marino, was established all the way back in 301 AD by Saint Marinus, who established a monastic community far up in the Apennine Mountains in northeastern Italy in order to escape persecution under the Roman Empire. Like, literally right before they themselves became Christian, but oh well. Throughout its history, San Marino was mostly left alone, save being briefly occupied a few times, even managing to evade invasion by Napoleon thanks to San Marino's diplomat Antonio Onofri, literally just becoming good friends with Napoleon. Italy, like Germany, was divided into dozens of different little kingdoms and city-states for much of the second millennium AD, only to unify around the mid-19th century, except with a couple small pieces scattered around. During Italian unification, San Marino became a refuge of sorts for those who had previously been persecuted for supporting unification, with a treaty between San Marino and the new Kingdom of Italy being signed in 1862, effectively guaranteeing their independence. At this point, San Marino just started staying neutral in European affairs, including the unification of Italy and both world wars.
You kind of have to, right? When you're like such a small nation, anything breaks out, you're just like, we're not taking sides. We're not involved. Don't come onto our land.
At one point during the Second World War, the New York Times incorrectly reported that San Marino had declared war on the UK, to which they reportedly quickly told British authorities, no the hell we didn't. Finally, within the city of Rome lies what in my personal opinion might just be the weirdest country on earth, the Vatican City State.
Okay, I've done a ton of research on this area before. Yeah, it's super fascinating.
Officially known. Home to the Pope and a higher average male to female ratio
really
than
pretty.
most fantasy football websites, the Vatican essentially serves as the global headquarters of the Catholic Church, and is the only sovereign country not to be a member of the United Nations. Throughout the Middle Ages, from 754 AD up until its conquest by the newly formed Kingdom of Italy in 1870, much of central Italy was dominated by the Papal States, basically a kingdom whose king just happened to be the Pope. Of course, this all ended in, well, technically 1861, but for sure in 1870. This, however, began a 60-year period of the Pope, actually 5 popes, acting essentially as prisoner of the Kingdom of Italy that they didn't recognize, with Benito no Mustasciolini giving the Pope a small plot of land around the Vatican, provided he recognized the Kingdom of Italy and didn't get involved in international politics. So now that we've answered why all these microstates exist in Europe, now we must ask why all these microstates exist specifically in Europe. I mean, even if we don't count island nations like Singapore or Bahrain or Tuvalu, why aren't there really any mainland countries this small in Africa or Asia or the Americas? Well, mostly colonialism, but also most of these microstates are holdovers of old feudal states from Europe's Middle Ages. Essentially, as Europe was broken up and put back together so many times over the last 2,000 years, these little nations are kind of the crumbs left behind as remnants of when Europe had many more of these tiny little nations. And now they're basically all independent tax havens.
They got good tax havens. All right, might have to check out one of those for possible getting a second home. I'm kidding. I like paying taxes, okay? Just the least amount that I can possibly pay. All right, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I actually felt like I learned a lot and have a little bit more insight into what a microstate is. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.